Today we are going to see the important topics like how we can simplify the Salesforce development with the generative AI. So everyone knows that we are using ChatGPT in our day-to-day life, daily basis for many things. So we are going to see in the perspective of Salesforce development with the few prompts how we can utilize the generative AI to simplify the Salesforce development and to provide the quality delivery. So first the prompt. So what is prompt? Everyone is aware detailed instruction that help large language models to generate the great output. If our prompt is with the good quality, then we can expect the great result as outcome. So basic ingredients of prompt, what are the ingredients it needs to have? First thing is participant. We need to clearly mention who is doing that work and their role and who is receiving the benefits of that output. So all those roles needs to be mentioned. Then settings, so we need to add some contextual information under the goal. What is the goal of the prompt? Then relationship between the different participants involved, and we need to provide the data as much as data that is relevant. Then, of course, detailed instructions. Then limits. What are the limits that we need to apply to that instruction? And what is the language that we expect the output? And style and tone. What is the style and tone that we expect the output? So these are the different ingredients of the prompt. This you can also see it from the trailhead. So this is taken from the trailhead. So these are the important things that we need to have in the prompt to write the quality prompt. So now we are going to see about this four prompt. So I have already written the prompt and we are going to test with the requirement. So first thing is essential client inputs for requirement implementation. So once we get the requirement from the client, what are the questions that we need to ask? So that for that purpose, we will use that first prompt. And the second one is writing the implementation approach for the requirement. And the third, finding the implementation risks that can come in the requirement. And fourth one is test cases for the requirement. So for all these four, we are going to try it out with the prompt, how it gives the result. So the first one is, this is the prompt I have written. You can see like you are Salesforce consultant responsible for gathering only the essential details required to implement the specific requirement. So we have clearly defined the role that is LLM is going to play, that is Salesforce consultant. And your task is to create the concise and focused list of questions to ask the client, ensuring that all the critical information is captured without including unnecessary queries. So like this, I have written the detailed prompt and in the detail section, I added the requirement. For now, I have added one simple requirement. So when opportunity stage is marked as closed one, send a thank you email to the customer. So this is the requirement we received from the customer. And for this requirement, we need to ask many inputs from the customer before we can start implementing the things. So for that purpose, we are going to use this prompt and use the chat GPT for the output. Here I have copy pasted the complete prompt. Only this section varies every time requirement. So whatever your requirement, you can post it. So remaining it's static. I have written based on doing some testing, all those things. So as we use, if we need to add some more instruction to the prompt or if we need to modify that, we can modify. But for now, this looks good. So let's see what ChatGPT gives. What are the information that we need to ask to the client for this particular requirement? So you need to go through this list and whatever the relevant that you need to ask to the client, because it's giving the so many things, but we don't need to ask anything, but it's good to verify all these things. So our implementation with the greatest quality. So first thing, what specific data from opportunity records should be included in the thank you email? So this is good. Like what are the information we need to have in the email template? And the process related question. Should the email triggered immediately when the opportunity stage is closed on, or we need to send it in some delay? Like for some clients, they will ask to send every day instead of sending as soon as it get closed on. So this question is also good to ask. And is there any criteria to trigger the email? Like some customer may tell like, I don't want to send a closed on email all opportunity. I want to send for only opportunity which meets specific condition. So this is also good to ask. And should the process work retroactively for existing opportunity marked as closed on? This is important question. So like the opportunity is already marked as closed on. Here we talk about the past data. Do we need to process the past data also? That kind of question this is. So like that, we have many relevant questions that we need to ask to the client. So some question may not be relevant. Like here, are you using any third-party email service provider for sending the email, or directly using Salesforce. So this one, we already know we directly use Salesforce for any sales related automation instead of using other tools. So this question we don't need to ask. And when we don't need to ask this question, this is also irrelevant. So like that, it's giving the enough questions to ask. You need to go through once and decide what all the things that you need to ask to the client. So once we get the requirement, we can send it. So it can also sometimes miss certain things. We can't assure that it gives all the things, but mostly it works well. So we need to apply our intelligence and skill to ask the relevant questions. So this is for making sure it reduces our time and increases our quality and productivity more. So we go to the next one. So now we got to the all the information that is needed to implement the requirement from the client. Next, we need to write the implementation approach. So it's always good to write the approach, then work on the project. So you already have the approach in the mind, but you are just going to verify with the chat GPT once again. That's it. So it's for the same requirement. We are going to ask the chat GPT with this. So you can clearly tell here I have mentioned chat GPT is playing the solution architect role. If you see before, that was Salesforce Consultant role. So like that, for different kind of prompt, we need to clearly tell what role ChatGPT is playing, LLM is playing, so we get the right output. And the instruction also, I have clearly mentioned all the things, and also I have mentioned to provide the relevant links. So I'm just copy pasting it. So you will always have this prompt in your hand. You just need to fill this requirement in place. And so you may have more information, like it's always not a single line requirement. Even if you have attachment, you can attach the requirement, and here you can tell like I have attached the requirement. Okay, so in this, when writing the implementation approach, I have also told to write the client questions to ask here, list of questions to ask. That's why that information also coming along with the implementation approach. So here you can see email content, to whom we need to send the email. We may face the issue like if multiple recipients are there and multiple contacts are there, how to handle that. So all those questions are there. Okay, done. So implementation approach starts from here. So it's telling to first create the lightning email template, then it's telling to use the record trigger flow and error handling, testing, deployment. So this is the best approach for sending the email template we can do. So that's what ChatGPT also recommended, and also it have given the alternative approach to implement this requirement. And it has also given some assumptions. These assumptions and all, sometimes we need to check with the client or inform them. For example, Salesforce email limits. We have only 5,000 email that we can send to customers. So all those limits are there. And what are the dependency to implement this requirement? We need to finalize the email content and we need data. Data needs to be proper. Like if they are not maintaining the opportunity contact role, then it's we can't send. First, we need to update the data. And these are the documentation links. So we got complete things. You are just re-verifying your approach with the chat GPT. It's not that you take directly and use it. You should be in the position, you already know the approach well, but it's like you are re-verifying it with the chat GPT. So now we are done with the client questions and the implementation approach. So next, implementation risks. This is what we don't focus more sometimes, but while we are implementing or after implementing, then we may hit with some risk. So it's always good to check the implementation risk for any requirements. So here, if you see, again, it is Salesforce Consultant, because risk means it's related to business as well. So here, LLM is playing the consultant role. So I have mentioned the requirement and remaining else is same. So the first risk is incorrect email recipient. So we can't do anything. If data is wrong, then it won't send email. So flow failure due to missing data. Yeah, so our flow needs to handle the missing data. Like for maybe some opportunity can get marked as closed one, but there is no related opportunity email or opportunity contact or contact role. So that time our flow should not fail. So this issue we face sometimes. We will not consider this scenario like how to handle without email or without proper data. But we need to have the proper entry condition in the flow that all the record fields are populated to trigger the email. So if we know this risk before, we would have considered during the implementation and we can avoid one bug. So it's always good to check the risk. and the mitigation steps that we need to take. So exceeding daily limits, we know it's 5,000 limits, so we are not going to hit that much limit. And a duplicate email sent. See, this is one more important thing. So sometimes there can be front and back, they mark the opportunity to close the one and they do some other updates, or they move back to the stage and they come to the opportunity closed one stage again. That will trigger the email again. So those things would not happen. We need to handle that carefully. So compliance violation, this we don't need to worry. Like anyway, it's GDPR compliant. System performance impact. So we are going to do with the flow only. So there is no issue with that. Missing notifications for errors. So this is error handling, and it's suggesting to use the approved email template only. Sometimes we may use some templates, but after implementing, client will tell to change the template. But if we know this risk before, we can check with the client in advance. And these are some references. So this is how we can check the risk of the requirement before implementing. So we can check with the client or we can discuss internally and we can implement at right way. So we are already doing it, but it's good to check with the ChatGPT. So if anything is missed also, we will get to know because it's using the global data and giving the suggestions. The main thing is prompt needs to be great. That's why I have written this prompt. I tested it and written it. For some requirement, if it is not working, then let me know. We will modify the prompt. So we can keep enhancing our prompt so it will work well. So next, test cases for the requirement. We miss to test the important scenario that is needed for the requirement. So to avoid that, we can use this prompt. So this create the test cases for all for the requirement. So here we have written as ChatGPT is playing Salesforce quality assurance expert role, and I have given all the instructions. So like in our previous session, I have explained how to write the efficient test class, all those things. So I added all those instructions in the prompt, so it can give the great result. We are using the same requirement and asking the test cases. So the first test case is verify email is sent when opportunity is closed on. This is a success path. We usually test this scenario always. So this is fine. And validate no email is sent when email address is missing. This is important to verify because if we don't handle this well in the flow, then it will throw the error message. Like it can even stop opportunity update. So this is important scenario to test. Verify single email sent for multiple updates to closed one means it's moved to closed one, and maybe we can update the opportunity record again, or we can move back and forth to the closed one stage. That time it should work fine. So this is also important scenario, and very important email sending for bulk opportunities. So that also we need to test. And invalid email address, that's fine anyway. If it is invalid, it will not reach them. Ensure email is not sent for the users without permissions. Okay, if they don't have the permission anyway, they won't be able to update the opportunity. So this is fine. And we need to validate the error handling path also. Sometimes we don't test the error handling path only. We just test the success path. And we need to verify the email content, whether all the data are populated. This also we miss sometimes. We check whether email is received or not, but we don't verify properly whether all the data are correctly populated in the email. That's important. Okay, so this is also a great thing. Verify thank you email for different opportunity type, whether it's working for all the opportunity types. This anyway, if limit exceeded, it will not work. So if you see, it has given the test cases in the very simple way because I have written the instruction like that to provide only test case name and in very simple way how to test and what should be the expected result. So this is how we can cross verify if we are testing all the important scenarios so we don't miss it. So if you see this for doing all these things before starting the implementing the requirement, it takes around half an hour of time, but it's going to reduce a lot of time in the future and it's going to increase the quality of work a lot. So the same feature we may have it in the inside our project management portal, but it may take some time, but you don't need to wait till that point. You can start using this feature using the ChatGPT. So the next one is if you are hitting any of the limits or consideration errors, you can use Salesforce Agentforce. So Salesforce has released Agentforce for the help, Salesforce help. Here you can come and ask the questions. So let me show you what are the things I reviewed. So whatever the prompt that we tested already, if you put that will not work in the Agentforce for Salesforce help because it's designed for only support related questions. So it's telling like this. And next I asked, can you give limits related to future job? But it's telling like it doesn't have that information because whatever the prompt that we are giving to the Agentforce for help, Salesforce help, it needs to be very clear. It doesn't understand if we give the future job, we need to give future method. So once I give the future method, it's giving the proper limits. What are the limits of the future method? Till now, we checked everything that we do before doing the actual development work. For getting the LLM help while doing the actual development, you can use the Agentforce for developer that we already discussed also. It was called Einstein for developers before. Now it is called Agentforce for developers. I have added link and also YouTube link that they have again explained it clearly with the more use cases. So we can use the dev assistant for creating the Apex class, and we can use the command palette, and we can use the inline code completion and the test case generation for Apex class. So this is for the actual coding work. Once we are done with the three things, so like whatever we discussed now. So now we discussed how to use the chat GPT for the before starting the development, and we need to use the Einstein for developers or Agentforce for developers while doing the development, and for any issues, limits, considerations, we can use the Agentforce for Salesforce help. So these all I wanted to discuss. You need to start utilizing the chat GPT and modify the prompt and see the result. It's really important. Otherwise, we will be far behind if we are not using the chat GPT LLM well. Thank you, everyone.